So the Super Mario Bros. Movie has finally passed the $1 billion box office and has officially joined Disney's $1 billion box office animated club. Now, the reason why I mentioned Disney specifically, for those who are wondering, is because the last animated movie to hit $1 billion at the box office was Frozen 2 in 2019, and before that in 2019 as well, it was the Lion King remake, which don't even get me started on that monstrosity. It's been a pretty interesting ride so far. I've been covering the box office run and all the crazy records it's been doing, like the best opening weekend, which pushed out Disney's Frozen 2, the Super Mario Bros. Movie taking one of the higher spots of the Illumination records for highest grossing movie, and other cool records. Like for instance, the highest grossing animated video game movie, a huge win for video game movies in my opinion, which have been having a pretty good streak so far in the past couple years, which is fantastic. I mean, could you imagine if Nintendo could lead up to some kind of Super Smash Bros. Movie? That would be amazing. I mean, what they could easily do is use the Subspace Emissary from Super Smash Bros. Brawl as the starting off point for a story for this Super Smash Bros. Movie. I think that would just be really cool, and it could be the end game of Nintendo movies. And with all of this craziness, all of these things pointed to the Super Mario Bros. Movie passing $1 billion at the box office, and now it finally has, and this is what Variety has to say. The Super Mario Bros. Movie has pounded out some serious coinage. The animated adventure from Universal Pictures, Illumination Entertainment, and Nintendo is becoming the first release of 2023 to cross the $1 billion market at the global box office. While Mario Bros. Isn't projected to cross the coveted threshold until the end of this weekend, Universal is confident enough in its projections to declare a victory. Now, this article was written right before it hit $1 billion, and as of the time of this recording, right now it's number 11 out of all animated movies. And keep in mind, this just opened up in Japan, so there's going to be a lot more box office coming in for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which means it's going to go even higher than this, which is still kind of crazy. I don't know, I kind of find it interesting watching box office and seeing how many records it breaks in overall. It's kind of fun to watch. Now, Variety has some other information on the Super Mario Bros. Movie box office, and it's pretty interesting, so this is what they say. First debuting on April 5th, the Super Mario Bros. Movie has been a dominant force in theaters for the entire month. It still ranks as the top release on domestic charts, now in its 4th weekend on release. Of release. Now, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that there is a pretty big movie coming out very soon. Now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe hasn't been as good as it could be, or even not even close as good as it should be, like it was before Endgame, and even during Endgame. Endgame was pretty good in my opinion. But overall, Marvel just hasn't been as good as it was before, but I think things are different for this movie. I think Guardians of the Galaxy, it being the final run for the trilogy, and also the positive buzz behind that movie, will also affect the Mario movie goings for people who do want to see the Mario movie but see Guardians of the Galaxy as another potential movie to be seeing. So I think in some way, shape, and form there is going to be some kind of effect on the Mario movie box office when Guardians of the Galaxy 3 hits the theaters. Now, this movie is getting a lot of positive reactions with the early reactions coming out and all the positive buzz surrounding that movie right now, so it might do really well at the box office in the beginning, and as long as it's a good movie, it will probably affect the Super Mario Bros. Movie box office because people are going to see that movie instead, or maybe see both, you know, that's what I do personally. But in some way, shape, and form, it is going to affect the box office as long as that movie is good. But on the off chance that the movie just isn't as good, or maybe people just aren't interested in the movie in the long run because the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been sliding off pretty hard recently, I think there might be a case here where we see people seeing the Super Mario Bros. Movie more than the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Whether the outcome is that or not, I think there is a big question here that you have to ask. What happens to the box office at the end of the run for the Super Mario Bros. Movie? Is it gonna take the top spot? The highest grossing animated movie is the Lion King remake with $1.6 billion. In my opinion, I think this can get very close to the Lion King remake, and honestly, I think it's also gonna beat out the number 2, which is gonna be Disney's Frozen 2. Keep in mind, if that does happen, this is gonna be out the Minions, which is number 5, which I think is definitely gonna happen because it's only about $1.1 billion at the box office, so I think the Super Mario Bros. Movie is definitely gonna pass it, especially with Japan's box office. Whether it's gonna pass the Lion King remake or not really depends on how strong the legs on the Super Mario Bros. Movie is gonna be. Now, the one question you have to ask is, what can they improve on the Super Mario Bros. Movie for the next movie, whether that's gonna be a Donkey Kong movie, or it's gonna be a Peach spin-off, or it's gonna be maybe a Luigi's Mansion movie. Because if you didn't know, they are gonna do more movies. They said that they were gonna do something with a Nintendo character, and it's not gonna be Mario. So is it gonna be something in this universe they've created? A Donkey Kong movie, or a Peach movie, or maybe a Luigi's Mansion movie? Or maybe something entirely different, like a Star Fox movie, or maybe a Kid Icarus movie, or that would actually be pretty cool now that I think about it. A Kid Icarus movie? That would be pretty fantastic. When it comes to these video games, I think some can get away with the lackluster story as long as they're making the movie fun. Now, I do want a better story, don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted. Like, I do wish the Super Mario Bros. Movie had a fantastic story, near perfect, godhood, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the movie was still enjoyable, but it could have been even more enjoyable if the story was a little bit better. Personally, my thoughts on the story is that it was really enjoyable. It was one of those stories where you can have fun with it. It's not anything deep, it's not anything thought-provoking, it's just a nice story, you know? A heartwarming story, I guess you could say. And those don't need to be anything too deep or anything too big like something from another movie. It was just fun to watch, but I think in some adaptations you do need to nail that story, like a Legend of Zelda series. You definitely need to nail a story in a Legend of Zelda movie or Legend of Zelda series. You mess up the story in the Legend of Zelda series or movie and it's gonna be a big problem, a huge problem. So I think that's one thing that they need to focus on a little bit more when it comes to some of these IPs. Now, I want to move on to this next topic that I've been wanting to talk about, and that's about future video game movies, not just Nintendo movies. So if it wasn't clear now, I think now more than ever, especially after the Super Mario Bros. Movie hit $1 billion at the box office, I think a lot of companies are going to look at this and say, hey, this is a huge moneymaker. But I think looking at the Super Mario Bros. Movie, not just from the IP Mario, which is a huge IP, but I think they also need to look at what it did right, why people are enjoying this so much, and just what's going on here. And I think they need to, in some way, replicate what the Super Mario Bros. Movie did, which is pay homage to the source material and respect the source material. I don't know why I said homage like that. It's homage, not homage. At least I think it is. But anyways, I think the reason why this movie works so well is because it's just plain fun and it's wrapped up in a Super Mario skin. That's a little grim, but you guys know what I mean. The critics say that this is one of the problems with the movie, that there's too much nostalgia bait, there's too much Easter eggs, but I think that's exactly why it's doing so well, and that's exactly why it's so enjoyable, because we're getting exactly what we want. I've said this for the longest time. These companies need to stop trying to do their own thing so much, so far away from the source material that it becomes an entirely different movie, an entirely different IP. I mean, think about the Sonic movies. Some of the less interesting parts are the human characters. I mean, let's be honest, we have more fun when they're doing the video game stuff in the movie than we are when we're spending time with Sonic and his human friends. I think that worked well for the animated TV show Sonic X, but I mean, in live action, it just didn't work. When you talk about The Last of Us, the reason why it did so well and what a lot of people were talking about is that it's so faithful to the source material. When you talk about the Halo TV show, a lot of people were complaining that this isn't like the source material. There's a pattern where a lot of people are saying we don't want it so far from the source material that it becomes something else. And the Mario movie went in the complete opposite direction, and now it's passing $1 billion at the box office. That should be a huge sign to all of these studios that, hey, maybe we should try to do our own thing, yes, but don't go so far that it's unrecognizable. When you go to a Mario movie, you want to see Mario. You don't want to see, well, what the 1993 Mario movie did, right? When you see The Last of Us TV show, you want to see the story from The Last of Us TV show. One of the great things about that, according to people who played the game, I haven't played it yet, I know. Shocking, right? Is the story was really fantastic and the focus was on the story in those games. And if you mess up the story in the Last of Us TV show, people are not going to like it. And I know there are some misgivings and things that people have problems with the story of the Last of Us TV show, but overall the reception to the video game adaptation from TV, or not video, from video game to TV was pretty positive. So I think it creates an interesting situation where I think a lot of these companies need to look at what they're doing and say, hey, maybe we should cater to the video game fan base instead of people that aren't our install base, you know? So for instance, the Assassin's Creed TV show that they're supposed to be making, if they're gonna have their own character, make sure you set it up like you would, say, the Ezio story or the Edward Kenway story. Like, make it an Assassin's Creed TV show. Don't try to do what you did with the movie, because that clearly didn't work. Go in the opposite direction of what you did in that movie. Like, I love the Assassin's Creed story. I love the lore of the series, and I want it to be great. Imagine if we get a TV series for Assassin's Creed that has new assassins each season, and one season dedicated to a fantastic story, and sometimes maybe they cross paths, especially if they play around with the time of it. And I just think overall that would just be fantastic, you know? But it depends on how far they go with the series. They need to make sure that they respect the source material. That's one huge thing that these video game movie adaptations need to do. They need to respect the source material. And I think as far as the Nintendo movies go, I think that's something we can expect. I mean, who knows? Maybe that Kid Icarus Easter egg and Star Fox Easter egg are kind of hints of the next movie. Maybe we're gonna get a Kid Icarus TV show, or maybe an animated movie and a Star Fox TV show. You never know. Or a Punch-Out. There was a lot of Punch-Out stuff there, especially in the diner. So you never know. But overall, I think this is a fantastic thing, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. What do you want next from Nintendo, and what do you think these video game adaptations need to do to make it a fantastic video game movie experience? And while you're at it, throw out your final box office run projection. Do you think it's gonna pass Lion King's $1.6 billion, or do you think it's gonna be slightly below? Personally, I think it's gonna be like just slightly below that. I think it's gonna hit number 2. It's gonna pass Frozen, but I don't think it's gonna hit $1.6 billion. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and of course subscribe and all that great stuff. You know what to do. Every YouTuber says this at the end of the video. You already know what to do if you enjoyed the content, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'll still cover the box office run on this. I'll do it all the way to the end, so if you guys like these videos, just tell me in the comment section below. Maybe I'll cover more movie stuff on the channel, and I'll do a mix of gaming and movie. We'll see.